front and your back. Don't care about nobody. Don't care.
My next guest is Robert Sigman, who used to be president of Republic Pictures and is now the head of the Lone Pine Film Festival and Museum.
In '93, the first year I was here, my children were smaller. We went to Lone Pine. We went on to Death Valley, actually, a vacation. And we came out of Death Valley, needed a place to stay. There was a place called Boulder Creek, which is still there today, an RV park. My daughter was about 8 years old. So we stayed overnight. Next thing I know, the next morning, my daughter, who wanted to go to a little store, Jackie Hickman is the gal that worked there, came back about 10 minutes later and she says, "Daddy, the woman there wants you now." I said, "What happened?" She said, "Go get your father." So I went over there and asked what was happening. She said, "Look, do you know anything about Lone Pine?" I said, "I have no clue." She said, "Look around my room here." And there were pictures of Republic movies, and Dave Holland showed up. And she said, "So is it really true you're the president of Republic Pictures?" I said, "Yes." She says, "We're never letting you leave."
and he hasn't. He's still there. Now, tell us about Dave Holland.
Dave Holland was an incredible guy. Dave showed up that day, and a great historian, an ex-advertising guy. And he had been, since 1989, when they started the festival, he and Kerry Paul had introduced the Sierra Film Festival the first years. And just so knowledgeable, wrote one of the definitive histories of the Lone Ranger. And so, you know, those early days, Dave would say, "I've got to take you out on a tour." And of course, again, this rekindled such memories from being young and the Lone Ranger, all the movies. And he was a gracious guy, and unfortunately we lost him a few years ago.
And what Dave had done for the tours out there, and the tours are wonderful at the Lone Pine Film Festival, there were tour buses where Dave had recorded what you were actually seeing as you were driving around, and you would think Dave was on the bus with you. His voice was just charming and welcoming and informative. So it was timed so that as the bus was driving through these great monument rocks and film locations, Dave is talking about it and telling you exactly what was shot there and why it was important and why you should like it. And even after he passed away, the buses continued for a year or two to use his voiceover. And it just was like he was there with you.
Yeah, well, the whole community, it's interesting. Again, growing up in New York for 12 or 15 years, Los Angeles for so many years, coming to live in Lone Pine again, the sense of community and what happens is like living back in that Western culture.
And his blood pressure has dropped
Yes.
since he moved back there.
It's normal, first time in 25 years.
Really?
That's true. Gary Brown, sitting here, has been a good friend of the museum, friend of mine, was kind enough to introduce me to a gentleman named Bob White. Bob White's a car collector and a retired businessman. He restored Tom Mix's 1937 Cord, which Tom Mix was killed in 1940, and spent a considerable amount of money. It's on the website. And so Bob is bringing that cord. It's been about $1 million restored. We'll continue our efforts to support the early years in silent film.
Always wanted to come to Lone Pine. My wife passed a year and a half ago, and I put it on my bucket list to come here and to visit this ranch. I've enjoyed watching Hopalong Cassidy so many times, and the best one was shot at this ranch. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm just thrilled to be here.